Chapter 3 of Tractate Nedarim continues going through the laws of vows. The first Mishnah says there are 4 types of vows which are permitted by the sages, which just means that these following types of vows are null. Motivational vows, exaggerated vows, unwitting vows, and vows of circumstances beyond your control. A motivational vow, for instance, is a vow taken during a business deal that you won't go higher than a certain amount, even though you would be willing to. The Gemara disputes the author of this Mishnah based on a related case. There's further debate as to what exactly this means that the sages allowed these vows. Some suggest it means a sage must annul them. Others say it means that they're automatically null. Others say it means that a sage can only nullify vows similar to these, meaning regret is not a valid method of nullifying the vow. There are instances of this brought. It further gives cases of instances of invalidating vows, and it also speaks on how negative it is to be an angry person, how there's severe punishment for such, and it also mentions an incident where a sage was traveling with others and one of them got angry and killed the other, and then the person turned to the sage and asked if he had done the right thing, and the sage, fearing for his life, said yes, and you should open the wound up so that way the man will die faster and not suffer. Later the sage was upset by this whole event, but he was told he had done the right thing in saving his own life. It further speaks on how terrible it is to get angry. There are further particular instances of annulment of vows, and it's ruled that we do find a way to annul a vow out of the man's regret of the vow, and we do also deal with one who vows on God's name. There are further similar instances discussed, and these are all described further. New Mishnah: if somebody wants to vow to make his friend eat with him, he should earlier say that any vow he makes should be null, and this works as long as he remembers he did this when he makes the vow. The Gemara asks how this would work if the other guy knows he's preemptively nullified this vow that he's gonna make. Some say to amend the wording to be that this works if he doesn't remember the nullification when he made the vow. Others say it's where he made the nullification stipulation earlier, but he forgot what he had said, so he says he's making his vow in accordance with his original intent to nullify it. It's debated if this type of vow constitutes as the above-mentioned type of motivational vow, which is debated from several sources. It's said that others do disagree, but it's held that this case does constitute a motivational vow. New Mishnah: the next mentioned type of vow was an exaggerated vow. For instance, if somebody vows not to eat something if he didn't see as many people on a road as there were people by the exodus from Egypt, or that he saw a snake as thick as the beam from an olive press. The Gemara says exaggerated vows are permissible, but not exaggerated oaths. For instance, taking an oath against all the fruit of the world as he didn't see an amount of people as great as the Exodus. It also clarifies he can't say when he took this oath that he was referencing an anthill, actually, as that's not the way people typically speak. Judges still do clarify the literal meaning of an oath, but that's only because there was a famous case where a man owed coins to somebody and told him that he had already paid it, so it was brought to court, and the judge told the borrower to swear that he had given the man the coins back, so the borrower handed the other guy his cane, and he took this oath that he had returned the coins, and the other guy got so mad he smashed the cane, and all the coins rolled out. So that meant technically the guy had not made a false oath, as he had literally returned the coins. It further clarifies the necessity for specific wording in an oath, and it says that he can't be referring to other concepts when he uses particular words. In regards to exaggerating that you saw a massive snake, but it says there actually was such a massive snake in the days of King Shapur, which swallowed 13 stables of hay. So rather, when somebody is exaggerating a vow that a snake was like an olive press, it means that the snake's back is rigid. This also informs us that the back of an olive press is rigid, which has relevancy in regards to whether or not it needs this factor in regards to the laws of sale. New Mishnah: an unwitting vow, as mentioned, is if somebody vowed against something if he had eaten or drunk earlier in that day, and then he remembered that he had actually eaten or drank earlier that day. Or if it's somebody who vows against something if he will eat or drink, and then he forgets about this vow, and then he ends up eating or drinking. There are other instances given. The Gemara says, along with an unwitting vow being allowed, an unwitting oath is also permitted. For instance, if 2 people take an oath that somebody said something, and they both believe themselves to be correct. It discusses the above cases, and these are all qualified further, along with some additional points. New Mishnah: a vow of circumstance beyond their control is a vow, for instance, against somebody that they must eat with him, and then the other person becomes sick or otherwise unavoidably delayed. The vow does not take effect. The Gemara cites a relevant case of such a thing occurring. Some ruled in that case the person's vow was null. Others disagree, as they say it was by a foreseeable constraint. The other says it was null, as the case was what's referred to as an asmachta, which means a commitment that the person made not thinking he'd have to honor, which this opinion holds is not legally binding. The law is that such a commitment in asmachta is legally binding, so long as he wasn't constrained by circumstances beyond his control, and it was made through a formal act of acquisition through a prestigious court. New Mishnah, you are legally allowed to vow to a murderer, a plunderer, or an unlawful tax collector that the produce that they're trying to steal from you is teruma, or it belongs to royalty, even though that's not true, just so that way they won't eat it. Beis Shammai says you can make any type of vow for this, but not an oath. Beis Hillel says you can also make an oath. Beis Shammai says you can't initiate such a vow. Beis Hillel says you can. Beis Shammai says the vow is only allowed on the demanded parts of the vow. Beis Hillel says it's on any part of the vow, he said. Examples are given. The Gemara clarifies when it says the tax collector, obviously as there's an obligation to abide by the laws of the country you live in, you have to pay your taxes. So clearly this must refer to an unlawful tax collector, either one who made no set limit or a self-appointed tax collector. It further describes the method of making such vows. There's an apparent dissenting source which implies that an oath can be made according to Beis Shammai, but this is disputed. New Mishnah, if somebody vows that saplings should be consecrated if they're not felled, or a talus should be consecrated if it's not burned, they will be considered consecrated and must be redeemed. If somebody vowed that saplings should be consecrated until they're felled, or a talus should be consecrated until it's burned, they are consecrated but not redeemed. The Gemara says, it said they're also redeemed by the first one to parallel the wording of the latter part. It further describes the method of such a consecration vow. The reason the consecrated produce can't be redeemed is because they'd automatically just be reconsecrated over and over until they're felled or burned. Others say it's because once they're felled, they don't need to be redeemed, they're just automatically deconsecrated. This is further debated. It brings other cases to dispute the opinion that physical sanctity can't leave by itself, and there's further discussion on these points by relevant cases which are qualified further. New Mishnah. If somebody vows against benefiting from seafarers, he can benefit from land dwellers. If he vowed against benefiting from land dwellers, he can't even benefit from seafarers, as they're also land dwellers. This doesn't apply by travelers of a short distance, but rather to a large distance. This last point, it's debated if it refers to the first or last part. Some say the first part, someone who vows against benefiting from seafarers can benefit from seafarers of a short distance, but not of a long one, while others say it's on the last part, someone who vows against benefiting from land dwellers still can't benefit from any types of sea dwellers. New Mishnah, somebody who vows against benefiting from those who can see the sun can't benefit from the blind, as he meant those that the sun sees. The Gemara says, if he wanted to not benefit from the non-blind, he would have said against the sighted. This vow he made, vows against those the sun sees, excludes specifically fish or fetuses. New Mishnah, if somebody vows against benefiting from dark-headed people, he still can't benefit from bald or old people, but he can benefit from women or children, as dark-headed is an expression to refer to men specifically. The Gemara says, he didn't say not to benefit from those without hair. Dark-headed refers to men, as women always cover their hair and children always uncover their hair. New Mishnah, if somebody vows against benefiting from the Yoldim, those who were born, he can benefit from those who will be born. If he vowed against benefiting from Noladim, those who will be born, he can't benefit even from those who are already born, but others disagree, and others say he's referring to anything that can be born. The Gemara clarifies the logic of these terminologies. The last opinion includes only mammals. New Mishnah, one who vowed against benefiting from those who rest on Shabbos can't benefit from Jewish people or Kuthians. If he vowed against benefiting from people who eat garlic, this includes Jewish people and Kuthians. If he vowed against those who go up to Jerusalem, that includes only Jewish people. The Gemara explains, he said those who rest on Shabbos, which Kuthians also did. He should have said those who are commanded to keep Shabbos. By going up to Jerusalem, Jewish people and Kuthians were commanded to do this, but only the Jewish people did this. New Mishnah, if somebody vowed against benefiting from the descendants of Noah, he cannot benefit only from non-Jewish people. The Gemara explains that although everybody's included as a descendant of Noah, Jewish people aren't referred to as such. They're called descendants of Abraham. New Mishnah, if somebody vows to not benefit from the descendants of Abraham, he can't benefit only from Jewish people. The Gemara explains based on verses that this excludes Yishmael and Esav, even though they are technically also his descendants. New Mishnah, if somebody vows against benefiting from Israel, he can do business with them at a loss. If he vows that Israel can't benefit from him, he can do business with them at a gain, although people probably won't do business with him. If somebody vows against the benefit to or from Israel, he can do business with idol worshippers. The Gemara cites some related points, and these are discussed further. If somebody vows against benefiting from the uncircumcised, he can still even benefit from uncircumcised Jewish people, and not from circumcised non-Jewish people. If he vowed to not benefit from the circumcised, this still includes circumcised Jewish people and excludes circumcised non-Jewish people based on verses. It lists several teachings from several sages on the great importance of circumcision. The Gemara describes how Moshe was punished for delaying the circumcision of his son as he traveled back to Egypt, even a little bit. It says, as he traveled, 2 angels of destruction came and swallowed Moshe Moshe up to the legs, so Moshe's wife quickly performed the circumcision. It cites several other teachings on the great importance of circumcision, that it's equivalent to all of the other commandments of the Torah and similar. It also criticized people who try to divine the future, and says God will help those who don't do such things, which is based on verses. There are further points on the forefather Abraham. It says he recognized God when he was 3 years old. It also says he had total mastery of his body, which again is all based on verses, and the priesthood was taken from the descendants of Shem to be with Abraham's descendants. And that's the end of chapter 3.